Hello and welcome in today. I know what you're thinking. Do I really want to sit through a video on vintage lucite and plastic jewelry? And the answer is yes, you do. There's a lot of misinformation out there, both in the real world, from antique dealers, and also from content creators on YouTube. I'm going to be dispelling some myths in the coming videos. I want to welcome you all in and say thank you for joining me today. You might say to yourself, why does vintage plastic matter so much? Well, I have a lot of answers to those questions. And guess what? These two bracelets are worth approximately $8,000 for the pair. And that's a retail price. $4,000 a piece for vintage plastic? What? So we'll bring these back in the Bakelite video that's coming very, very soon to not only the channel, but also I have recorded it now 3 times, and I've actually deleted it 3 times. So let's settle into this video. And what I wanted to focus on is, why do I get the calls that I get from estate sales and storage unit auction buyers and flea market vendors and antique dealers and just mom and pops that are local? Why I get the calls that I get is I dress the part every day. I have a fashion sense, or lack thereof, like none other. So I wore these Tron glasses, and Tron was the movie in the 1980s, or late 1980s, and it was a fascinating movie, and I remember it as a child. And these are Tron glasses, and I wore these to a flea market, and a lady saw them, and she said, "Hey, I have a box of plastic jewelry from my mother. Would you be interested in it?" And I said, depends on what kind of plastic it is, but the answer is basically yes. These glasses, and wearing these glasses way back when, actually provided me probably around $4,000 or $5,000 in vintage plastic jewelry, which you will soon be seeing just a portion of in the coming moments here. Why I have a greater understanding of plastics is, as a jewelry historian and also a silversmith and artist, I have worked with materials that were, shall you say, less valuable than others. I had been able to use diamonds and gold, platinum, fine gemstones throughout my work. And then I also constructed things like these 2 bracelets. Very fashionable, very oversized. This was a lucite bangle that was broken that I found at a flea market. And what I did is I cut the other side, and then I put this sterling silver hinge on. So I completely fabricated this pin style clasp, and I did this so many years ago. It's oxidized over time. And what I did is I made these little collars. Let me slip that back in. And then I, of course, did a much better design to where the pin didn't come all the way out. I actually split the pin on the inside and put a little post here soldered through so the pin doesn't come all the way out. Anyways, I learned how to become a better craftsperson over time as well. So I drilled out all those holes and put in sterling silver cups, and then bezel set those with these incredible dyed shells. Anyways, doesn't that look like trapped confetti? Like someone just threw confetti in the air and it like froze it in time? I've always loved this style of bracelet, and then I did put this into production. I sold out, except I think I have 2 left. I think I have 1 in blue and 1 in green with stones. Anyways, so there's that one. So my understanding of materials is slightly different than most antique dealers or most collectors. And I've often said I'm not right, I'm not wrong, I'm different. And this is further proof of that. This is a lucite bracelet, and then these are acrylic glass, or acrylic, I almost said glass because they look like glass. Those are acrylic prisms that are then tap and dyed. So I tap and dyed each one and got it into that bracelet. Stay tuned, because wait until you see this box completely loaded with some of the coolest plastic jewelry. And I love this bracelet as well. Very large and oversized. You will see me wear this in several of my videos from time to time, because I still love this. I did this style of bracelet both with a sterling silver hinge and without. And look how I got those posts down in there. Look how long this has been around. The epoxy that I was using is yellowed over time. And by the way, 99% of epoxies do go yellow over time, even the quote archival ones. So just so you know, look what it did to change the color of these stones from the front. So a happy mistake, to say the least. I don't think I would change that for the world. Let's get into this box. Oh, and this stack that's still out. So I will bring this back to the Bakelite video. These 4 bracelets on the outside are vintage Bakelite. This is a Lucite and Bakelite rod bracelet that I actually produced. And I only made 3 of these. And 2 are in private holdings, and 1 is actually in a small museum holding. So people were mystified by how I could produce these in Lucite and Bakelite. And I'll tell you what, it was a lot of labor to drill those out and get those forced fit and glued down in. And then look at that for spacing, the light and shadow that goes through there. Look at that. And this was the prototype for it. I actually, in the ones that I produced, the 2 that I produced, I got the rods closer together, simulating Bakelite bow tie bracelets, and not a knockoff because I don't sell them as old. Even those have oxidized. I think you saw the oxidation on that yellow because Bakelite will oxidize over time. All right, let's take a look at these. Other people have a tendency to not be able to discuss different kinds of plastics. And what I'm going to get into today, let me show you these. You know what I will do? I'm going to unbag this one small portion because I did store them in bags just for now to get them to the video. They're normally hanging or they are in like shadow box displays. I don't store my plastics inside plastic bags. Give me 1 second. And here I go already, putting way too many things in the box for this fancy show and tell. But what I want to do is always show you the examples rather than just tell you. I have learned by visual information, and I hope all of you are learning right along with me. These are vintage Bakelite, and I had to show these. These are zipper pulls from the late 1950s. And look at the camel, and look at that one for probably Chesterfield. Anyways, can you imagine? These are Bakelite, the bodies of these. And then the cigarettes are actually celluloid. What a beautiful charm from a gone by era. And what I loved about these is the size and how miniature and how small. Years ago, these were not very well thought of, and now they're worth an absolute fortune. I had a third one and I sold it for $165. So there is a lot of money in vintage plastics. Let's get into the light box. So kind of a comparison contrast before we really settle into what this video is specifically about is 2 Bakelite necklaces that are confused for Lucite. Now the chains are celluloid and the pendants are Bakelite. You can trust me on this information because I've been at this for over 30 years now. So you can trust me. I promise you, I'm not going to mislead you. So these are both vintage Bakelite. We'll get into testing of Bakelite in the Bakelite video specifically. We're not really covering Bakelite today, but why I included these is they were inside the box and the lady had assumed that because they're translucent, light goes through them. This one is more of an amber color. This one is more of a apple juice color. Anyways, so you look at these large pendants and you think, wow, they're Lucite. Nope, these are both Bakelite and they're fantastic. They're from the late 1940s into the 1950s. Let's look at those celluloid chains and let's not get anything else stuck on here. Those are celluloid, but look how the chains match the actual plastic drops. Isn't that wonderful that they're in both such good condition and they're very large and very well carved? These are carved by hand. When you see anything molded with like seams on it, that means it's not Bakelite or Lucite because neither plastic has seams per se. So there you go. Fantastic, old, and wonderful. Let's move these out of the way. I always run out of space because I always have this tendency to bring on way too much. Now we have a hole here we have to fill. So as I just got through saying, I have too much in the light box. Here, let's fill this void. So let's smash everything together up here and fill this in because you want the crash course, you know? You want the basic. Now, I'm not going to get into what we are learning about forbidden fruit pins, but we are learning a little bit more about the plastics that are used in forbidden fruit pins and the like. What I will say is this. We'll go in on this one, and this is actually not Lucite. These are always thought to be celluloid. We are doing more additional research on this plastic as well. It may be in the polymer family of a polyester. And the reason for this is Akron is the kind of polymer capital of the world. And there is a Polytech building on the University of Akron's property, and I actually have been in touch with them to see if I can get some of these plastics tested, so that then we know exactly the chemical structure, rather than just saying, oh, this is lucite, just because it's clear, or oh, this is celluloid, because it is lightweight. So as a jewelry historian, I will always take the deep dive. Sometimes it'll take me 4 and 5 years to prove what a material is, but scientifically, you can't doubt when it comes down to science of a plastic. It's just undeniable fact. But these are all little rhinestones glued down to this flower, and that's how passionate I am about my information. These are always missing a lot of the little stones. It's only missing a spattering of them. Do not keep these in high humidity, and do not keep these in a hot environment. Always keep these room temperature and not inside of a plastic bag. What I would suggest is just like a shadow box or a showcase. Keep it out of sunlight as well, and it will last another, hopefully, let's say 80 years. All right, now we have another hole that I have to fill. The reason why I wanted to do this video was on lucite, and I'll move this one in because this will be our segue into getting into what we wanted to talk about specifically. But let's, on the outside here, work around here. These are the forbidden fruit and also the vegetable pins. So this is the rarest of them. This is the double mushroom pin. You'll always find it in this size. Well, I should say, when you find it, it is in this size. The reason why I'm not going to cover the plastic on these is because you can see the mold lines, and it has always been said that these are lucite just because they're clear. In fact, now we're learning a little bit more information, so I'm not going to call it lucite anymore, but look at this little baby one. I have never seen the baby one. In 30 years of collecting, I have never seen the baby mushroom pin. And look at that for a set. They were purchased by this woman. One was purchased at a flea market and one was purchased at an estate sale. The daughters couldn't remember which one was purchased where. This one was, I think it was $4, and this one was $5. Isn't that crazy? Value now on such a set, probably between, this is tough, $175 to $225, $175 to $225, and that's full tilt retail to a very well-versed collector. Anyways, some of the prices are really starting to surge. You can always double check me. If you don't, if you doubt my values, you can always go over and double check me and see what things are actually selling for. I'm very current on that information because I need to know it every day of my life. And yes, I am now helping auction facilities again with pre-auction estimates because that's what I've done for 30 years. And it was great. The last run I had, they had said to me, you haven't made a mistake in 3.5 years. And I'm like, thank you. That's all I said. I'm just built differently. That's all. I'm just built differently, and I keep very current on my values. This is the pear brooch and earrings. And yes, there's wear to the enamel paint that can be restored if someone desires. The age of these. It is widely known and widely accepted that the age on such things would be around the 1950s and into the 1960s. There is the 3-carat brooch and the 3-carat earrings. Again, you'll find the carat brooch, and sometimes you'll see it with 3 carats like this one. Sometimes you'll see it with 2. There's the pin back. When we see that application there as well, we a lot of times instantaneously think that that is celluloid, because that is normally how they attach a pin back to celluloid. Again, we'll get into that in coming videos. We're not discussing that today. I'm not taking the deep dive today. We're not going there. I'm showing you based on design and value for today until we get into the lucite that I really came to discuss. There you go, clip-on earrings on the back. That set probably around 150, between 150 and 185. So there you go for that one. These single fruit are now between, anywhere between like 45 and 65 for the single fruit. And we are still finding them, but now the price has started to surge just a little bit. So just remember that every time a video comes out, it could be supply and demand. Let's say the supply for forbidden fruit is high and the demand online is low, you will start to see a slight elevation in value. That's just basic business. I've often told people it doesn't take, a brilliant person to figure out that a lot of times supply and demand. The acorn is slightly harder to find, so this one's now between $95 and about $110. So there you go. And look how accurate I want to be. I didn't say 125 like I wanted to, but my brain was like, no, you already know it's about 95 to 110, so say it. So these are brown rhinestones, and again, people can call it lucite still, but we're gonna go in and we're gonna take the deep dive and figure that one out. But look at the lemon brooch. And I've always loved these, but can you imagine being able to wear 3 of them together on an outfit? I mean, look at that. And so collectible. And the values are going up on these. Again, just keep them in a box or a showcase. Don't keep them in warm weather. She paid $45 for this set a long time ago. And this is the orange earrings and brooch. You normally find the brooch, but you normally don't find the earrings. On that set, today, probably 75 to... that's a tough one. 75 to 100. And you'd have to call it at that point and say, that's enough. I have a lot of the ear of corn brooches, but this is the one that came in her collection. And look, it's in its original little O'Neill's box. And that's where she bought this back in the day, in O'Neill's. That probably started her love for such amazing pins. And what I've always loved is the mixture of materials. Did you notice earlier when I was mixing sterling silver and lucite with my jewelry? Well, I was studying the history of what we had spanned before us. And just kind of starting where they left off, in a way, and honoring these craftspeople that were so forward thinking. Can you imagine mixing metal and plastic and then accenting the plastic with rhinestones that look like Indian corn? Unbelievable. In terms of design, aesthetic, and craft. Love these. And I think I have a total of 7 of those. All right. Let's do this. We'll clear this all out in a second, and I'm going to load this back up, but this is our segue to lucite. I wanted to talk about lucite specifically today, and it only took me 16 minutes to get here. So this clear plastic here is known as lucite. Now, we're going to do a whole bunch of information on lucite, but it's known as like acrylic glass. That's basically what it's called, is acrylic glass, because it is plastic and it's made to look like glass in a lot of ways. The red on top of here is bakelite. So they did combine lucite and bakelite. This brooch would be from the late 1940s into the 1950s. Let's go there. And that is just glued together in 2 different layers. And you can see that there. Boy, are my allergies really taking a toll on me today. All right, acrylic glass. Let's do a little bit of a correction here. In one of my plastic books, it was said that lucite wasn't invented until 1950. It was correctly attributed to the DuPont company. However, lucite was basically developed in late 1928. It was invented and actually kind of mass-produced by 1933, and it was introduced in 1937. It was already at the World's Fair in 1939. Now, I had went over all of this information with 2 of my very advanced collectors and my jewelry historians, and I said, are we allowed to say this now? And they said, absolutely yes. So I said, all right, I'm bringing it out, and I'm going to go against the books that say it was only around in 1950. But you can tell by this design, it was already being used. And maybe not widely produced, shall you say. But you can, look up information online. Just make sure you're getting it accurate. Make sure you're getting it right. This brooch, because of the combination between this really bold scroll of red and cherry red bakelite laminated to that gorgeous asymmetrical swoop or feather of lucite. Isn't that just a stunning brooch? Doesn't this look like it could have been made in 1990? I just can't believe that this was, over 40 years before that. Think about that. Amazing design and craft, and taking 2, quote, worthless materials and making something so exceptional. Anyways, value on that one. Retail now $145 to $165. So an escalation in value as well. Pause for 1 second. I'll be right back and fill this up. I gotta put that right there. It drives me crazy seeing a blank space. Be right back. You know, sometimes when I pause the videos, I think about so many other things that I should have said and all the things that I'm glad I didn't. So I was already laughing off the video and I thought I'd share the moment with you as I was packing all this up. I got to the mushroom pins and I thought, wow, what a forward-thinking lady back then, and what courage it would take to have the whimsy in her life to wear 2 mushroom brooches. And then, of course, I got to the acorn and thought, what a perfect mascot for me because I'm totally nuts. And look how magic I am. I changed my background in just the wave of a hand. You should have seen the blooper I just had. It was incredible. I sometimes wish the camera truly was rolling on these outtakes. Look at this little guy. This is where it started my journey with Lucite. Yes, please. This is one of my first Lucite pins that I ever purchased. The rest of these came in this magnificent collection. Look at that with the googly eye. So this is completely Lucite, absolutely 100%. Old riveted and glued on pin stem on the back, which you want to see. Reverse carved, so the pattern of the fins and the tail and a little detail on the face was reverse carved on the back of the Lucite. And then on the front, it was carved down into to create that waviness of form. Look at the way they transcended the material. When people say, I don't get it, they say to me, it's just plastic, I don't get it. And then I look straight face at those people and I go, I don't get you. And then I get in trouble because I'm not allowed to say certain things. Look at him on a patterned fabric. Are you kidding? Are you joking? I mean, come on. That is just, it's exceptional. This pin reminded me of a lot of summer times with my father when he would teach me how to fish for bluegill. And we would always let them go because I was, when I was little, I said, we have to let them all go. So we did. And to this day, I've never eaten a fish or any seafood. I've never even tried it. And guess what? You don't miss what you don't try. So, yeah, I just loved this. I didn't know what else to say about this, but I had to show you this. Into the segue of why we were actually here today. And I have always loved Lucite pins. I will say this much. Let me get this back in its little container over here. Sorry to fuss in the background today, but it's just that day. And I was so distracted. Let's just go in on these for Lucite. Now, values before I forget. And then we'll go into time period. Most of these are widely accepted to be circa 1950. Could they be into the late 50s? Absolutely yes. So we just circa date them to the 50s. Can some of them, like this version, be late 1940s? Absolutely, positively yes. Someone will see this and say, hey, wait a minute, that's apple juice Bakelite. And then I'll say, hey, wait a minute, no, it's not. This one is reverse painted with a yellow wash. I understand why people would say that's apple juice Bakelite. They did do a version like this, clown, with apple juice Bakelite. I'm not going to talk about apple juice Bakelite, except for that is right there. That is technically apple juice Bakelite. We'll get into that in a Bakelite video. However, circa dating these, let's just say 1950 so no one fights with each other. And value. The value will kind of ebb and flow over, over form, size, and complexity. Most of these would be in the vicinity of 125 to about 195. And that's a very comfortable zone for all states, both coasts, and in between. Sometimes these can range higher to 245 to 255. I do have a Lucite pin in my collection that is now around $600 to $700. Couldn't find it for this video, but again, I wanted to show this as the collection that came into me. Now, of these, there are 6 more brooches that came in with this collection that was boxed up. Look at this pig with that laminated surface and the rivets holding that. Look how they designed the rivets to be the nose holes to hold that secondary piece of Lucite to the surface of this brooch. And then they painted the eyes on it again, reverse carved and then also carved from the front to get the details into the bow. Then it's reverse painted. Sometimes this will be laminated Bakelite like this. So this is actually Bakelite on top of Lucite. And see how the design is different? That is underpainted here and then laminated here. So that's a whole separate piece that's stuck down to the surface, like that scrolling brooch earlier that I showed you with the red Bakelite on clear Lucite. Look at the two of those, and a front view stern head. Absolutely wonderful for a gentleman to wear. We don't like to leave our guys out of wearing jewelry, and I could see a guy wearing this one as well. Absolutely unisex on such pieces. There's the pin mechanism, and it's always embedded inside the plastic. See how there's like those two little holes? Then there's two little prongs on the inside here, because I did repair one of these one time. There's like these little posts that are folded down. You can see they're like arrow-shaped. See how they're cut out of there? Then they're arrow-shaped and they push down into the plastic. So it's like a friction set pin stem. Very secure way of doing it. Here is this guy, and I've always loved this. And then there was a thing about those Taiki toys back in the day. So if you look up Taiki toys, this is one of those as a simulant of that mime. Absolutely whimsical and fun. Fantastic. I've worn this several times, and every time I do, I get smiles from the most random of people who don't necessarily understand vintage plastic jewelry. The seal has always been a fan favorite as well, with this carnival ball. And what I loved about this one was the complexity of design. And again, taking something, quote, worthless, clear plastic, transcending the material, and making something outstanding. You can see that that's been a replacement over time. So the original one fell out or broke off. And you can see where that's inset into that little platform of almost lucite. Or celluloid to get those two pieces together. Look at that for apple juice Bakelite. You want to see the pin that I've often worn this with? This is one of my favorites, and it's going to be in a coming video on Bakelite. This is Bakelite from 1945, and this is the walrus brooch. And look at the tusks. Those are celluloid, and they are inset into that Bakelite. And I had wanted this pin for so long, and it was resin dyed, so it was actually creamed corn yellow Bakelite, and then over dyed kind of a grayish green. And look at the way that kind of settles into that surface and gives us such detail. That's a mold line in the Bakelite where the Bakelite was actually poured into a sheet. So you know that Bakelite is not molded in terms of a two-part mold. This was completely carved out of a sheet, but where that was cast, there's kind of trails of color, and that was just a cast line, per se, when the Bakelite was poured into the sheet. So, I just absolutely love this, by the way. And look at the pin mechanism as well. Completely original, but I wear these two together. So, isn't that great for a story? And every time I wear these together, that's the way I do it. Every time I wear these together, boy, do I get a response from people. I guess I could wear them like that as well. Kind of, he's looking at, this one. So the seal and the walrus, absolutely incredible. And then here's the running bear. A lot of times the head will move on these. And in Bakelite, the head does move on the running rabbit. I guess I could bring on my rabbit. Let me go get it. I actually had it on yesterday. Hold on. I guess this is going to turn into a mashup of all vintage plastics. Here's my running rabbit brooch. Back in the day, let's talk about values on the articulating pins. This is Bakelite. This is carved and painted and resin dyed, so you can see where the resin wash is letting loose. See how this is yellow? So they put a resin. Some people say rosin, I say resin. They put a resin wash over the Bakelite. It was creamed corn, Bakelite, originally, and they resin washed it, and you can see where this arm has swung and worn away that resin wash on the opposite side. Do you see that for the wear pattern on there? Always look at the pin mechanisms. There's a lot of reproductions of the very expensive brooches. Now, the running rabbit, late to school, like I always was, guess what? Celluloid eye value. Years and years and years ago, these are up to over $2,000. I think I saw one of these sell one time for like $2,200, and I think one may have sold for like $2,400. Again, supply and demand. These weren't, there weren't very many made of this specific brooch, and I will get into rarity of Bakelite for sure because I've been doing the Bakelite world for almost 26 years now. So you can trust me on reproduction and what things are actually worth. I won't pull things off the internet and point at the prices and look totally confused and say, well, that's a great price if I don't know that it is. I digress and get back to this and say years ago, 2200 to 2400. This one specifically now, more in the line of around $750 to $850 on a retail level. So they have come down by about a third. So they are about a third of what they used to be. But I wanted to show you that for a Bakelite Running Rabbit. Still a lot of value in such a brooch. And we'll bring this back to the Bakelite video and we'll take the deep dive in that video. I'm going to pause you and show you when they combined lucite and metal together in the Jelly Belly brooches and show you the real ones. Here we go. You know, the more I look over this video, the more I realize I'm all over the place in this video, and I'm all over the place in real life every day. So my videos are totally truthful of how I live my life. So these are some of the Trifari Jelly Bellies that I personally own. And oops, this one is not Trifari. So I just want to let you know that that one is not Trifari. But these are all considered Jelly Belly brooches. It's a widely used term and also misused from time to time. Anyways, these are sterling silver and these are genuine Trifari Jelly Bellies. They have lucite centers and then they have sterling silver mountings on the outside. I had shown these in a video before, so I'm not going to spend long on this. If you want to see these in the other video, please scroll through my library of videos because these were featured in a video way early on and I've lost track of which one it's in. I don't know, but Trifari, Crown Trifari, and then patent pending and the numbers of the patent there. So actually not patent pending. There's the patent number, there we go, sterling silver here. Now please be careful on Trifari Jelly Bellies. This is the sea turtle, and what I will say is there's an awful lot of reproductions. Look for age, look for variation in the surface, look for the age of the rhinestones and the casting. See how that neck kind of really sits in on that? The craft of these, undeniably beautiful. See that little prong that holds the lucite belly in? That's a very important detail. A lot of times in the reproductions, they're just sloppy and glued in. The reproductions, to me, are basically worthless. I mean, if you want to wear a brooch and not spend a fortune, I understand. If you're doing it for fashion's sake, I understand. But there shouldn't be a content creator pointing at reproductions and saying, oh, this is a fabulous buy at $1,100, if in fact it's a total knockoff. I'll get into some corrections in coming videos because it really does bother me. As an advanced collector, I want to save people from being taken advantage of, and I want to save people from buying reproductions and fakes. All of these that I show you in here are all authentic and all old. So we'll do that really quick. I'll let you take them all in. I'll show you the front and back of each. And this one would have had a gold wash on the surface, which is worn off. Look at those eyes. Again, look at the lucite stomach, how that's inset in there. There's a lot of age to these pieces, and apparently a lot of dust because I haven't cleaned them. They're in a showcase. There's the patent pending. There's the patent number, sterling silver. There's the Trifari mark, and let's go in on that real close. Right there. Make sure you see all of this in what you're going to purchase, because again, if someone's asking $1,500 for this brooch, you do not want to buy a reproduction. You're going to get taken advantage of and you'll be very upset. But I'm going to do some correction videos because pointing at an online listing, and I'm not just saying eBay or this site or that site or wherever you're pulling your information from, if you're not in front of the piece and you don't see the front and the back and they don't show you photos of the front and the back, you cannot be a content creator and point at those listings, look confused and go, that's a great buy at, $1,500, because in fact, it's not a great buy at $1,500 sometimes. And it's very upsetting to me because I don't want to see people taken advantage of. See the two-part construction here with this screw that's countersunk down in? That's because that little piece, that little second piece, is holding this down. See, the lucite belly is kind of force fit in there. Look at that for design of that chubby seal, and look at the detail work on that. You can see this has been around since the late 1940s into the 1950s. See how this body is carved as well? It's not just a little piece of lucite. You can see, look, I'm fogging up the back of this because I'm getting hot and bothered. So I just don't like to see people taken advantage of. And what I don't like to see is people who are like new to the game, kind of trying to tell people about values. If you don't know, I said to one person, I said, if you don't know, just stay out of the game. I said, let somebody else do it, because you're costing people a lot of money if you're kind of regurgitating information that isn't true. And it does become problematic. Look at that one for sterling silver, and an old one. That is not Trifari. That is not attributed to anybody as of right now. Sometimes they were Coro or Coro Craft as well. This one is Trifari, and this one is Trifari. So there you go, the large sailfish. There we go. And this one, the small sailfish, there's some scratching to the lucite because that double fur clip mechanism on the back, by the way, should be spring-loaded like that. There's the construction, there's the gold gilding, there's the Trifari. So again, does it matter? It does matter. And the reason why is on these specific brooches and the other ones that are off camera that didn't fit into the light box, I have the tarantula, the Pekingese, I have the crane. I'm trying to think of all. Anyways, long story short, this array, I would say the value of the total collection with the ones off camera is probably around almost $9,000 now. These have surged again in price. Years ago, these used to be well over $1,500 a piece. I remember in the 1990s, this one was actually like $2,000. This one was like $2,200. This was like $1,800. And this was like $1,700. Now they're about 2/3 of that value. So that one, can you find it for like $875 or $1,000? Yes, probably around $700 to $800, $800 to $900, because it's not Trifari. Probably $375 to $575. That one's probably more along the lines of like $600 to $700. This one's probably still around $900 to $1,200. And those are more retail prices of what, these are actually, people are actually asking for the old Jelly Belly brooches. And then on the top of the box, here I go again. I should just call the video right now and say, I think I've said enough for the day. So when we got into mixing materials like this really spoke to me. And this is the Josephine Baker version. And this is ebony and inset with these silver-plated rivets for the earring and the headpiece. But look at that courageous scroll of lucite, all reverse carved. Can you imagine wearing a brooch that large in one of the most conservative time periods? Late 1940s, hedging towards the early 1950s. Look how large. Think of the woman that was fashion forwarded enough and courageous enough to wear this. And these have always spoke to me because of the mixture of materials. And then I'll go in on this one because this is coming in the next video. There's only one of these known in the world because of the form and the size of this. And I own him. And I bought this many, many years ago. I had to fight for this. It was a big fight and a crazy big price. But look at that face. It's a West Highland White Terrier. A lot of people say that these are Scotty dogs. Well, the other versions are Scotties. I will show you the Scotty version of this, but this is a West Highland White Terrier, a very, very, very unusual version. The reason why I bought this is I had a Westie as a child. So jewelry has always kind of meant something more than just adornment to me. It's had a life. These things have a past and should be revered as such. I hope that this video has really helped you out. And on the top of the box, why wouldn't have I had the the Bakelite acorn and oak leaf necklace and the matching brooch? Because that's the way I rolled back in the day. I have the earrings and the bracelet to it somewhere, but look at that for Bakelite. And again, sometimes confused for lucite because it's translucent, and that is a celluloid chain. So we'll get into Bakelite and celluloid and Bakelite, celluloid, and lucite, and we'll do kind of a versus video. I hope this gave you enough information as of right now. And I have this cute little square of pink to show you what happens with the Jelly Bellies when you put them on a fabric. Look how the fabric actually blends in with the outfit. I've always loved design aesthetic, and I think that that's so forward thinking of the artisans that created these pieces. Think about the time periods. Think about the fact that there was so much going on in the world at these times, but these artists fought back and made whimsy and beauty and allowed us to be fashionable. And now we look at these as like relics of the past that need to be revered and appreciated. I guess I went from hilarious and crazy to deep and philosophical all in one video. But again, it's my voice, it's the way I roll, it's how it happens in life. Again, I bring these on and say, please join me for my Bakelite video so that I can save you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars if you decide to buy, resale, or invest in vintage Bakelite. And then also, like I've said before, all of this happened because of these simple Tron glasses that were like 50 cents at a yard sale, and you can see I've dropped them several times. But I guess it's okay to stick out. It's okay to be different, and sometimes that transcends into being successful. An outsider sometimes isn't a bad thing. So thank you so much for joining in. I appreciate your time and your attention. Go forward with peace and kindness, and I just absolutely love you because I do. Thank you for joining me.